Okay, Samsung's latest A series smartphones are here, and today I'll be talking about the Samsung Galaxy A35. I also have the A55 with me, whose review will be out very soon, but right now let's check out the more affordable Galaxy A35. I have been using this phone for about a week now, and I think it's easily one of the best camera phones under 30,000 Indian rupees. Other than that, you're also getting one of the most good-looking designs for the price. It does look very similar to last year's A34, but this time the back here is made of glass. The frames are still plastic, but look at this. Samsung has finally gotten rid of the teardrop notch, and here we have a tiny minimalist punch hole, which looks way better. But I wish I could say the same thing about these bezels though. They are still thick and look outdated. The Galaxy A35 is also slightly wider than the A34, and it's also heavier, which probably is because of the inclusion of the glass back. This time, the back has a shiny finish, which does catch fingerprints and smudges, but it's not that visible, so I was comfortably using this phone without a cover. Samsung has not exactly been open about what kind of glass protection they have included at the back, but you get a more robust Gorilla Glass Victus Plus for the display. And as expected on an A series phone, you also get IP67 dust and water resistance. Oh yes, there actually is a small change in the design right here. The camera buttons and the volume rockers rest in a slightly protruded space. Now, I know it might not look like it's anything useful, but I found it to make the grip better, and it's easier to locate the power and volume buttons, so I do appreciate this tiny little addition. The display side of things is impressive here too. It's a big 6.6 inches Super AMOLED display with nice colors and contrast. This screen can also go decently bright, and finally Samsung has included adaptive refresh rate support here. I don't know if you guys know, but last year's Galaxy A34's display could only be set to either 120Hz or 60Hz. There was no adaptive refresh rate option, but that's not the case anymore. And this display can go from 60 to 120Hz depending on the content that is displayed on the screen. Apart from that, I love the color reproduction here, and there's just something to a Samsung's display that looks so pleasing to the eyes. The touch response and everything is also great here, so I don't have many complaints on this regard. However, I wish the Galaxy A35 had better haptics. Not that the vibration here is extremely bad, it is impactful but slightly buzzy and not as precise as you get on the more expensive Galaxy A55. The speakers here are good though. You get stereo speakers which are really loud. They are not the most balanced, but they're good enough for casually listening to music or watching content. Okay, so on the performance side, you're getting the Exynos 1380 here, which is the same chip that we saw on last year's Galaxy A54 and F54. And if you have watched my review of both these phones, you will know that initially I had complained a lot about how unoptimized it was. But over the time, Samsung did bring forth a lot of updates that optimized the chip, and its day-to-day performance grew to be really, really stable. Don't be mistaken, the Exynos 1380 is still not a gaming chipset by any means. The most it can do is give you a maximum of 30 FPS in games like PUBG with the graphics set to smooth plus high. It's the same with Genshin Impact that runs on 30 FPS in low plus 30 FPS settings. Slightly less demanding games like Call of Duty do reach around 60 FPS, but that is the maximum of gaming performance that you can expect from the Galaxy A35. Even when you look at the benchmarks, there's nothing extraordinary, especially when you compare it with other chipsets that you can get for a similar price like the Snapdragon 7S Gen 2 or the Dimensity 8300 Ultra. But I guess one of its redeeming qualities is the fact that this chipset does not heat up in any kind of workload, so that is good, I guess. Like I said earlier, because the 1380 is a tried and tested chipset, it will give you a stable experience in everyday usage. It can handle things like multitasking and browsing very well without much stutters or anything like that. Nonetheless, the phone will feel a little slower in general, be it while navigating through the UI or opening an app. I guess it's always going to be the same with Samsung's mid-range phones. Great software experience at the expense of a slightly slower performance. A small trick I used is to reduce the animation speed to half to kind of get the illusion of a faster performance. I did that with the fingerprint animation specifically, and now it feels slightly faster. Anyway, like always, Samsung is at the top of its game when it comes to software experience. You get the latest Android 14 here on top of One UI 6.1, and we all know how stable of an experience Samsung offers, not just in their flagship phones but in their mid-range and even budget phones. You are getting a total of 4 years of OS and 5 years of security updates on this phone, and Samsung is one of the few companies that sends monthly or quarterly security updates right on time. So that's always great to see on a Samsung phone. And not just the software, mid-range Samsung phones have always had a good reputation of having great cameras. I had the chance to test A35's cameras very extensively, and I am thoroughly impressed. You get a 50 megapixel primary camera with OIS here, along with 8 megapixel ultra-wide angle lens and a 5 megapixel macro lens. I did mention this at the beginning of this video too, and I will say it again, the A35 has one of the best cameras in its price segment, period. It does not have a large 108 or 200 megapixel sensors, but the camera optimization here is excellent. It gives you that classic Samsung color reproduction, pleasing greens, nice blues, and punchy contrast from the primary camera. I didn't find the colors to be overbearingly vibrant too. The colors are actually really toned down, and if you're someone who prefers a sort of a natural output, I'm sure you will like the images from the A35. Samsung has also done a great job with the HDR management. No matter how harsh the sunlight or how difficult the lighting situation is, the A35 was able to handle the highlights and shadows very well. During nighttime too, the A35 produces bright images with nice sharpness, all thanks to the onboard OIS. I did find the night mode slightly overdoing the processing sometimes, so I preferred not to turn it on mostly, and because the normal mode brings out some good images, I did not feel the need to either. I was also able to get good looking portraits from the A35 as well. The skin tone is slightly brightened, but it does not smoothen it at all, and the details also look natural. Sometimes it tends to make the skin tone a bit yellow, but not in an unpleasant way, so I won't complain much. But I do think it's high time that Samsung starts including 2x options for portraits, considering all its competitors do so. Selfies also look good enough from the A35. It's a 13 megapixel sensor and not a 32 megapixel one like the A55, but it is able to manage details on the face very well. I wish the skin tone was not as warm as it produces though. I am happy that there is a 4K recording option from the front camera as well. Quality wise, the 4K selfie videos are not the most stable, but subject focus and everything is nice enough. From the rear camera too, you can shoot up to 4K 30 FPS videos. The core quality of the videos is great. Color reproduction and highlight management is also good. You will notice a little bit of movement wobble, but nothing that ruins the experience. The only thing that's average here is the 8 megapixel ultra-wide angle lens and the 5 megapixel macro camera. First, there's a considerable color shift from the main to the ultra-wide angle lens, and the details, dynamic range and everything is inferior from this 8 megapixel sensor. Especially during nighttime, the ultra-wide angle images are really average. The color reproduction is not bad though, and in extremely good lighting, you will be able to get some acceptable images though. Lastly, I have no complaints about the battery life on this device either. You get a 5000 mAh unit that can easily last you an entire day with a solid 7 hours of screen on time on my heavy usage pattern. Charging could be a little pain, as you only get a 25 watt support that takes around 1 hour and 30 minutes to fully juice this device up. And by the way, there is no charger that is included inside the box. Okay everyone, so that was all for my review of the new Samsung Galaxy A35. I think it's pretty clear that like other Samsung mid-range phones, the A35 is not the best performing phone in its price range. Rather, it's a very well-rounded option that gives you a bit of everything from a nice design, great display, reliable set of cameras, and most importantly, good software experience. I am happy that Samsung did listen to some of the complaints about the A34, like the lack of adaptive refresh rate option, the outdated teardrop notch, plastic design, etc., and brought improvements to those aspects. I do wish that the haptic feedback was better here and the bezels were thinner though. Having said that, I will not shy away from saying that you are paying a slightly premium price for this phone. Ideally, I would have liked it if this phone was priced at around 25 to 26,000 rupees. But no matter how much nitpicking I do, Samsung's mid-range phones always sell pretty well in the offline market, and a lot of that has to do with Samsung's brand image and their software commitment. So if you're looking for a balanced Samsung option and your performance needs are not that extensive, the A35 is definitely a good option to pick. So everybody, that was all for my full review of the Samsung Galaxy A35. I will also be coming up with the review of the Galaxy A55 very soon, so stay tuned for that. Until then, I'm Pratima and thank you so much for watching.